Today, we're going to talk about alignment, and we're going to talk about it through the lens of B Corporation. And so back in 2007, early G-Diapers days, we were at Expo West, which is the massive natural products industry trade show in Anaheim in Disneyland. And I met three really amazing guys, Andy, Jay and Bart, who had sold a business successfully and then seen that the company acquiring them had lost all their values. Which is really sad. So they started B Corporation, which is an incredible certification that Kim's going to tell you about now. Go.
Well, a lot of you probably know what B Corp is, but ultimately at this essence, it's not only serving the shareholders, which is what traditional C corporations are in America, but it's a broader statement. So it's actually supporting all stakeholders. So people, planet, profit. So it allows you to have a broader view of, doing things that are good for the community, not kind of raping and pillaging, allowing you to support your staff better as opposed to just simply profit, single line profit based. So that's the beauty of B Corporation. And so two steps. One is the actual assessment. How do you treat your staff? What's the makeup of your board? What you do for the local community. You do the certification, check, and then with board approval, you then go and change your articles of incorporation so that you are serving not just the shareholder, you are serving all stakeholders. It's a really big deal for investors and everybody to be aligned about what this means for corporations. Because ideally, you want every single business that's ever created anywhere around the world to be a B corporation, right? Which is essentially do no harm, which shouldn't be such a foreign concept. But
and to be really clear, companies originally were that way, and then through the 70s and 80s, through shareholder activism, suddenly the focus was on maximizing profit, which means when you get to acquisition stage, you have to act in the best interests of that one stakeholder, the shareholder, which means you have to accept the biggest profit, the biggest number when you get acquired.
Yeah. And one of the things with G was for us, so we started in 2005 and we had a core value that was, long before we had investors come in, which was being fair income. So it's an Australian expression. It means really and succinctly being genuine and real with everyone that you meet. So people, planet, profit really is at its core. And what we thought was so great when we started to learn about B Corp was that it was really just this third-party independent certification for being fair income, right? Being genuine and real and honest and all those basic things. So everyone who was on our board or who were investors in G and who had come onto the team were already fully on board with this fundamental philosophy and values that we had. But what we learned through this process in 2007, maybe this point it might have been even 2008, I can't remember the details, but it was, there's a real difference between being on the same page, the way that a light bulb is, versus laser and being on the same word on that page, and how different that can be interpreted. So
so we got to a situation where we'd successfully passed the certification because it was really already in our DNA. But then we had this...
And this was the first round, so nobody knew what it was yet. There were no B Corps. This was we were going to be part of the very first introduction.
We were going to be a founding B Corp.
A little
and I think
we were folks,
we were going to be a founding B Corp. I think with the likes of Patagonia and those kinds of companies. They were very early on.
I don't know if Patagonia was that early, but definitely Seventh Gen was, and Earth's Best.
But lo and behold, having successfully done the certification, we then had a very interesting discussion around the boardroom table, and what was found out was there was some pretty significant misalignment when we thought about what it was to run a sustainable business, what it was to deliver the triple bottom line. And we share this story with you today because I think it was an interesting moment in the history of our company where it was like, misalignment revealed. And like anything, a team sport, running a company, alignment is kind of crucial. Yeah. And so that was the moment.
Well, and I think for us too, that it wasn't as if anyone was bad people, and everyone certainly believed in the values of what we were doing. But to change your articles of incorporation, especially when it's such a new idea, now you don't see the same resistance, or certainly you wouldn't from anyone who is in this space. But the idea was, are we going to devalue an exit? Because when you look around in the diaper space, the acquirers are the big players, and they certainly have no interest in being big corporations for so many reasons. So there was discussion around, well, we're already doing it. Do we need this outside certification? Do we need to make that risk? So it wasn't that people didn't believe in what we were doing. It was just, does that somehow then devalue the company? And of course, then investors, return at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we did get there in the end.
We did.
Not until 2010, I think.
That's right.
So it was a few years of a delay.
Yeah, but 15 years later, think of B Corps today. They're proliferating here in Australia.
Oh,
It's
I
Four
love
Pines,
There's like everywhere.
Stone and Wood, ethical.
Every new startup we meet
Yeah.
is becoming a B Corp.
Australian
it's a matter
ethical.
of course.
Yeah, massive superannuation fund. But what's really cool now is the certification is being used by investors to assess a company doing their due diligence, because it's all in the open. But the biggest thing for us with B Corporation, and we'll wrap it up here, is the power of that certification. Every 2 years you get recertified to bring the team together. And you can be the most sustainable business in the world, the most sustainable product in the world, but the team has got to rally around from the CEO down. And the B Corp certification does that, because every 2 years you get recertified, you bring the team together and you say, okay, how are we going to improve our number? How are we going to do more for the local community? How are we going to make this product even greener? Those sorts of things. So the B Corporation thing for us, a big part of our history, we love it. And we see that the world's going more and more B every moment.
I know, love it.
And that's a wrap. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next weekend.